Hello and welcome back to the all-new, all-different #1 Comics podcast bonus episode. It's me, Dan. You got Nick. Nick, what's happening? How the hell are you?
How's it going, Dan? How are you doing?
Hey, man. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Welcome back. I'm excited to talk about this book. I don't know if you have much to say about it, but today we're talking about the Dark Horse Comics new #1, Tear Us Apart, written by Jay Baruchel is what I'm going to go with, because that's what as I was telling you off air, the Google pronunciation said to go with. So hopefully that's the dude's name. Co-written by Van Jensen, art by Alessandro Maselli. I'm going to go with could be completely off there, but yeah, this new #1 from Dark Horse Comics. And of course, Jay Baruchel is an actor and a voice actor and all of that. So looks like he's got some comic book credits to his name, but definitely more so of like a Seth Rogen actor, like acts in a lot of those movies, and did some voice work for How to Train Your Dragon as well, if you're familiar with that. I've not watched any of those, so I guess I'm missing out, but I guess I need to check it out.
Oh, you haven't watched How to Train Your Dragon?
I haven't seen any of it.
Oh, you should watch it.
There's like 3 of them or something, right?
Yeah, I've only seen the first one, but it's great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had a friend a while ago who was like, dude, you got to go to the theater and check out this movie. I think it was like probably the newest one, like the 3rd one or something. And I was like, oh, okay, is it good? And he's like, yeah, it's awesome. Like, have you seen the other ones? And he's like, no. Like, okay, well, cool. I guess that's kind of like watching Jaws 3D and not the other ones, but whatever. Cool stuff either way. But yeah, Jay Baruchel has done some stuff for Captain Canuck, if you're familiar with the Canadian captain there, and done some writing in Deadpool, as well as a little bit in that Avengers Halloween special from 2018. So just like a couple of credits there, not a whole lot, but there's a few. And then Van Jensen, of course, done a lot of stuff for DC Comics. Did a long run on The Flash, Green Lantern Corps, $6 Million Man for Dynamite Comics, and that really cool. I don't know if you remember from like I don't know, right before the 2010s, Slave Labor Graphics came out with the Pinocchio Vampire Slayer. I think it was like a 4-issue mini or something.
Oh, what? I have no idea about that.
Yeah. Definitely go seek that out, because it's super cool. I loved all that stuff that Slave Labor was pumping out, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, like Johnny the Homicidal Maniac and Squee and all that stuff. They were definitely taking some chances. So I respect them for that, but they had some fun stuff. And then Alessandro Maselli done not like a whole lot, but some pretty cool, unique art here. The Ballad of Sang and Good Boy, and then other than that, just like some variant covers and stuff. So more of a cover artist, kind of getting into the illustrating comic book game. But yeah, this definitely not a book that doesn't have some accredited people attributed to it. So the synopsis from Dark Horse Comics reads: deep in the Canadian wilderness, a vicious cult dedicated to an ideology of pain trains children to become deadly assassins. In the midst of this world of cruelty, 2 teenagers break the cardinal rule by falling in love. The only thing standing in between them and happily ever after is an army of murderers with a taste for blood. So yeah, pretty accurate, pretty cool build up. Like, I have like a little synopsis that I wrote too, but before I get into that, like, what do you think? I always love to hear, like, when I'm bouncing like a comic book off somebody else or whatever, like, what they thought of the synopsis versus like what you read in the book, because sometimes it's like wildly off, sometimes it's pretty dead on. Some like, do you have any caveats to that?
Pretty much. That's pretty dead on to me. What you
Yeah, no, I agree. It seems like they're pretty good at writing the synopsis. They're like, just I always love to know, because sometimes it's so far away from what's actually happening in the book. It's just interesting to hear. But yeah, my synopsis, my little synopsis that I wrote here for issue 1 is Tear Us Apart opens with a tale of life being formed from the void through Aramanus. Hell if I know how to say that name. But as we meet a cult, we see the cult leader as he trains children become assassins and sacrifices one of them, and then he tells 2 other kids to fight. We learn that one of the kids is in love with another, and love is the only thing that's like forbidden as they contemplate running away. And then the girl is almost killed by a blade that the cult leader throws, and the boy steps in to save her. The two flee into the Canadian wilderness and take down the other assassins. And the book ends with the cult leader watching from afar, saying that there can't be any happy endings. So a lot kind of happens in this book. Like it's pretty intense. Like they don't really lay out the cult very much and explain much about it. I think that like obviously it's implied they're a cult and it's not really said or anything, but I guess maybe I don't know. I've never been in a cult that I know of, so I don't know if they're like, hey, this is a cult or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know if they explicitly ever say, hey, you guys are in a cult. Did you know that?
Yeah. They're like, hey, come on, join our cult. You're probably gonna die. It's probably gonna be miserable, but you're gonna, I don't know, worship whatever the hell I'm telling you to do. So
right. Definitely seems just like these kids were taken from their parents, or they have a breeding ground of some kind where they're getting these kids. And it just seems like this guy who is the cult leader is bent on ridding the world of what he would call like toxins or things that he thinks is bad for the world. So it's obviously a power trip. He's on some kind of like crazy power trip and he's controlling all these kids. But there's some magical elements as well.
Yeah, definitely. Some of this is like super off the wall, weird stuff going on. How he's like how that blade's being thrown and stuff, and then I'm trying to remember exactly what it's called, Noma or something. That's being breathed into their bodies whenever they're formed, and that's being discussed and everything. Really interesting stuff. And then they kind of discuss too, like, some people have more of it. It's more prevalent in certain members and everything. So
right.
Yeah. Really interesting. I'm actually reading, like, I don't know if you ever look at League of Comic Geeks. I don't know if you like look at new releases and stuff through that. Like, it's an app that I like to use, but they were saying on here that it might be inspired by the Anthill gang or Anthill cult. I've never heard of that. I don't know if you have, but
like an actual cult in the world. I've never heard of that.
Like, I mean, they're, it's kind of like a question. They're wondering, is this inspired by the Anthill cult, which isn't one that I've heard of, but yeah, super cool. I like whenever, like kind of whenever you get into cults and stuff, like I love some of those documentaries that come on, streaming services and stuff with cults in them. And then, but we had that podcast like a little while ago with the actress who left Scientology and talks about, or sorry, maybe it wasn't a podcast, maybe it was like a television series or whatever. But yeah, cult stuff is like super interesting, and I think like a little bit underutilized in comics. Like it's definitely something that you could go into a little bit more that has, that element of being kind of like restricted from the outside world and just stuck in your own little thing, and then what you have to do to get out of it. So I think that's a really cool plot device to work with.
Right. Yeah. And this is, I guess this issue. Well, first when you said that there's a lot going on in this first issue, I was like, this issue actually seems like it could be a one shot and it could end exactly where it ended, because it's so dense. There's a lot to unpack and there's a lot going on. And when I first saw that it was a Jay Baruchel, I think that's how you say his name. Sure. And then when I first saw that, I was like, oh, okay, another actor coming into where I didn't know he had all those credits behind him. And also, wow, because this is really good. Like, I just gotta say, like, the first couple of pages, I was like, oh, this is like weird. This is starting off with the origins of the universe and then going into how they breathe life into humans, and then going into the actual cult, and then just a lot going on. And I was like, this is like really interesting and like good, because I was already like hooked in. And me and you have done this is our third one together, right?
Yep.
And all three that we've picked have been like good, and I'm like, when are we gonna pick a bad comic and talk about something that's not good? Because I'm getting tired of going into these and being like surprised and actually happy with what I read. I want to read one where I'm like, man, I did not like this at all, but I cannot say that about this comic. It's actually, I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really like the way that this was laid out, and I like how the story, just like the story beats worked really well, and it just kind of shows us like almost like a day in the life of the members of this cult, and then these two, like, you know, this couple, and or rather, I guess these kids who are in love, I guess you could call it. But yeah, like you were saying, like it opens with that. It seems like maybe that's what they wake up to every morning. You know, that kind of indoctrination of the cult and how life was formed and how, you know, all of that. Now, spoiler alert for you. I just posted our latest like regular feed episode, which was on Hunt for the Skinwalker from Boom Studios, and I have to tell you, man, it feels like at first when I started the podcast, I was like, hey, this will be all over the place. You know, we'll do good comics, we'll do bad comics, whatever. It doesn't matter. You know, we're just doing number one issues, but it kind of sucks whenever you do a bad comic because you feel bad because, you know, I love the
crap about the people who made it. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I, you know, love the creators and people poured so much, you know, heart and soul into it and everything. And you're like, didn't really connect for me. You know, it feels.
Was that the last one that you did? Because I didn't listen to it yet. The last one you didn't like it?
Yeah. And I just posted it, so I don't expect really many people have listened to it yet. But yeah, it's Zach Thompson who's phenomenal. You know, he's a great writer, and Valeria, I can't say her last name, but amazing artist, like really cool artist, really great writer, like really good creative team, but like just together on that project did not work at all. Like I was like, I can't recommend this book to anybody. It's not fun. But yes, yeah.
I can't recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, I can't. But yeah, this is the complete opposite. This works really well. I love the way that you know, the story's being told, and the art is complementing that, and really like the art's telling a big portion of the story here too. Like there's not, like I said, they're not really explaining the cult or anything, so there's not some huge exposition or anything throughout this book, and they're letting the art kind of tell the story. And it gets like, for anybody who hasn't cracked this open yet or whatever, like it gets pretty brutal. Like these kids are like, you know, kind of fighting, you know, it's really bloody. It's intense.
Yeah, I had some questions about that. If we go into like the first time where we see the cult in front of the leader, and they're saying good morning, paternoster or whatever, which is obviously like paternal, which means father. So when they go there and he calls someone up to give themselves to him, and he puts his hand like in their chest, and we're already in spoilers, right? We just do that throughout the podcast.
Yeah, sure. Okay. The whole podcast is spoilers.
Puts his hand in his chest, and he's like, thank you for your sacrifice. And he blows him up, and there's a huge splash page of just like, which we've seen. We get these great splash pages when we do these number ones. And this was just like, I was like, like, it's like, they're just showing off, basically. The artist is showing off their skills. And he just blows up, basically. He blows through this kid's chest. And I was like, wait, why did he do that? Why did he need to do that? Is that where he gets his power from?
I imagine either, like one, that's where he's getting power, or two, I mean, a lot of times when you deal with cults, you gotta keep everybody in check. You gotta keep them, you know, fearful. You have to, or whatever. I mean, maybe they're not even fearful. Maybe they're like, you know, willing to give themselves for the cult or whatever. Like, I'm not too sure like what the point of that is, and I'm hoping that, you know, maybe through the next few issues they'll get into all that and everything. And honestly, I know they've got a story to tell here. We're gonna have to go into, you know, kind of the Romeo and Juliet. I guess it's not that kind of story, but you know, the love of these two kids or whatever, and them like, you know, fighting to stay in love or be with each other or whatever. But I'm hoping that we get like a little bit of backstory on the cult and they flesh that out a little bit. I'm super interested in the cult aspect of this for whatever reason.
Right. Yeah. And this could lead to origins, like different origin stories on like, if you want to like get like a spin-off of this, like you could totally go into the first time they had a paternus or whatever that guy's called or anything like that. That's how dense it is to me. Cause like you already have all these things that you have questions about. And obviously the title, Tear Us Apart, Love Will Tear Us Apart. Joy. I was just thinking of the Joy Division song. So I was like, it makes a lot of sense.
And that's exactly what it's supposed to do. I read like a little interview with the creators somewhere, and yeah, they were like, this is a what do they call it? Love note to the 90s. It's supposed to take place in the 90s. It's supposed to invoke feelings of the 90s and Tear Us Apart. Now, I don't recall when Tear Us Apart Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division came out, but for some reason in my head it's like the 80s. Like I'm thinking like, you know, it's an early 80s song or whatever. But but
I'm literally thinking like 87. That's what I'm going to say.
yeah, like I believe so. Like I really don't think that Joy Division was pumping that out in the '90s, because I feel like by that time Joy Division's Ian Curtis, right? And didn't he had already died by suicide before that? And they were the
And then
Happy
it was
Mondays
New
like in the
Order, right?
'90s, or is that New Order? Okay,
Well,
sorry,
I think
sorry.
the Joy Division became New Order and completely
Mhm,
changed their sound. They became like more electronic and
mhm,
like
mhm.
yeah, they went from the whole change through that. But that was the '90s.
Okay, yeah.
So
Maybe it's just supposed to remind us of the '90s, but I don't know. I didn't really understand what they were trying to say there, but
maybe it had nothing to do with the title. Maybe it was just like, oh, this
sure.
comic is an ode to the '90s.
Yep. Which
Great.
is,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's cool, and I like that, but I won't lie, I don't see anything that's, time is like ambiguous here. It's not reminding me of anything specific. I would say, if anything, like our kind of lead like boy character reminds me more of like the early 2000s. He's kind of got like the brush over like emo cut or something.
Yep.
So so I don't. I'm not sure where the '90s part is coming from, but like I'm all in. I don't care what time period it takes place in. It's really good, uh, and I don't think it really matters either way.
I'm glad
Um,
to hear that we're on the same page with this because
yeah,
I read it once and then I was in a car ride and I read it again on my phone and I have like a Kindle app on my phone and I was reading it and I was like, man, like I like it more the
Mhm.
second time I read it for
Yeah,
sure because there's things that happen in the beginning that they go back to at the end.
hmm
Like the beginning, they're saying words don't kill acolytes.
yep,
Like if they're gonna call someone out, it's like words don't kill. Show me what you got. At the
yep.
end, when he's like, "Hey, words don't kill," when he's talking to his the rival, the enemy, the guy who has the crazy eyes, and
Uh-huh.
he's just like, "Words don't kill. Come at me." I was like, "Oh yeah, that's so cool." Like I didn't even catch that in the beginning.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, it is dense. Like there's a lot going on here, and I think just like on a first impression, like I read everything twice anyways, but yeah, like a first impression, like it's such a straightforward story. Like introduces the cult, doesn't say much about them, shows kind of like that conflict of the kids are in love and they're not supposed to be, and then like they're gonna escape, and then they've got to you know basically like murder these little kid assassins or whatever along the way. So pretty straightforward story, but yeah, there's a lot like packed in here. Like if I think it's definitely worth a second read, a second viewing, to get that out of it. Uh, Definitely, with the story, but absolutely with the art. The art's really really cool in here. I really like it a lot. I love like original art. I I'm a huge comic book guy either way, so I love house style. I love all of that, but this kind of like indie vibe like is really a sweet spot for me. I really like this kind of thing. It's sketchy, it's messy.
Mhm.
It just it has a lot more feeling than that photorealistic art to me, and I think it matches this book really well.
Right. And he goes through some different art styles. There's like some
Yeah.
manga style
Mhm.
in here. There's some like I don't know. It was really weird when I was when it goes to the past and it says a decade ago and we find out when the love
Yep.
interests the boy and the girl when they were back in the day and it was 10 years ago and they find each other in a hole and
Mhm.
that's what the title of the first part is called Down in a Hole.
Yep.
Uh, or Down a Hole. I'm thinking of Alice in Chains, which is a '90s thing, so that makes
Hey,
sense.
yeah, there you go. Hey, maybe, yeah, you get the
But
man in the box in
there's a
there somewhere.
style, very
Mhm.
like specific style where it's like, oh, this is manga. This looks
Mhm.
manga, and then it goes to like they hold hands and it like has a galaxy in them, and I
Yep.
was like, oh, that's so cool because that's you don't see that like all the time. It looks really weird. It looks honestly like a spray paint, like when you splatter spray paint on it,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
see them holding hands. I thought that was cool, and then it goes to them a decade later, and then like yeah, so the art style. If yeah, our viewers can't read this if we're not describing it, but
Yeah.
all blues. It's all
Mhm.
blue. It's all black except for blood, and except for when someone does the Numa or Noma thing.
Mhm.
When they do that, it's purple. And I
Yep.
think that those are the only colors that are in this entire book is blue, black, purple, red. And I'm like, yes, like, and it when you can do that, and I'm interested the whole time, that's when you know it's good. Because I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is it's just blue and black because we're seeing something, when like it does like, oh, back in the day, and it's all gray or black or blue or whatever. But it's
Yep.
the whole time, and I'm not mad.
Yeah, and I think it's very complimentary of the, Canadian wilderness or whatever that it's in. This is kind of set off, I guess.
Oh, is this where it's set?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere in the Canadian wilderness, and I don't know if that's like, where they're housed somewhere, and then they break off into the Canadian wilderness towards the end. But yeah, something here is set in the Canadian wilderness. So and I would assume, being a cult is probably, kind of set off somewhere or whatever, away from regular society, so people can't peer in and wonder what's going on. So
Mhm.
um so you don't have like the M. Night Shyamalan The Village happening or whatever in the book, but
Yeah.
maybe it ends like that. I don't know, but
Oh no. I hope not. I hope
hey,
I'm not taking off of
I
M. Night.
love that one. That's a good one. But yeah, definitely like it just, you open the book, it's got those like icy cold vibes and everything going on with the blues and everything, and then it's just the second that it opens up, and there's I think the first, blood that we see is whenever, the cult leader is there, basically tearing that kid apart by doing whatever he's doing. Yeah, it's just the blood everywhere. The red is everywhere, and then you see it throughout the book. And then, of course, once you get towards the end, there's a lot of red. So,
Yeah. It was I was like, yeah.
yeah.
Give
No,
me more.
it's super cool and it's super intense, and I wonder how that'll go, in the future, the next few issues, or how I believe this is only planned to be a 3-part. Hopefully, it's a little longer, but either way, does he have like a huge army of assassins that like we're not seeing or whatever that are going to go chase these kids down? Is he going to do something? Are we just seeing like, a couple of little kids from that particular group or whatever, and it's way more widespread? I certainly hope so.
That is good. I like it when when you have those ideas and you're like, they should do this, and you're
Yeah.
like, and you hope you're not like letting yourself down later on when it doesn't
Yep.
happen.
Yeah, that
But
happens to me a lot.
definitely at the end, right? So our main character, he goes off on everybody basically because he doesn't
Mhm.
want his love interest to die. We
Yep.
see a bunch of red. We see everybody dead except for one, the
Mhm.
rival,
Yep.
and the father of the cult. And he's basically saying like they can run if they want, but there is going to be no happy ending for them. A bit of foreshadowing, probably. There's
Yep.
probably not going to be a happy ending. I can probably I'm like 80 to 90% sure that there won't be a happy ending based on the last panels of this,
Sure.
just
Mhm.
because that they love each other so much. We're gonna have some kind of tragedy happen. But, I could be wrong. They could totally end up happily ever after. You never know.
Hey, also it's what this is Dark Horse. So yeah, it's not DC Comics or anything. They don't have to have a happy ending here. There's no
True.
nothing
Yep.
holding
And
anybody to that. So
who knows how much creative control these two have, but the
mhm.
fact that everything seems so direct in the way that they're implementing what they want. It doesn't seem like they're having anybody switch anything. You know
Yep.
what I mean? It seems like a very direct story. They have something in mind. They know where they're going with it, and that makes it really exciting to continue reading in the future.
Yeah, completely agreed. It feels like a really fleshed out, really realized world. It seems like the creators of this really knew what they were going for and really executed well on the book. Um, so so yeah, I think that's without we don't even need to really say here, but I definitely am stoked about issue number 2. I can't wait till it comes out. Really looking forward to reading it. I highly suggest everybody out there listening picks this up. And I'll let you say your piece on it, Nick.
Yep, I'm fully in. I think out of the three that we've done so far, I'm
Mhm.
probably the most invested in this one at this point
Yeah.
because of how I just liked it. It's totally my style. Totally.
Mhm.
I I think there's a couple things that I'm hoping for and I'm
Yep.
hoping to see. And those things being we get into instead of just knowing about the two as a
Mhm.
couple, I want to know more about the boy by him individually, like what's up with him. And I want
Yep.
to know more about the girl individually so that I can get more invested into like whether something goes bad for them. I want to feel bad. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Right
Mhm.
now, I'm kind of just like, oh, this is a couple. They're not really single individual people. So if we can get some of that later on, I'll be really happy. But I can't wait for issue 2. Did you say that it was a 3 issue, or did you?
That's all that's solicited right now on the Comic Geeks app. So that doesn't mean that that's all. Maybe that's all they had release dates for or whatever. But
this does seem like the first part of a 3-part
Yeah.
series. So because it's very like, oh, this is the first thing that's happened. Then we're going to get to the middle, then some conflict resolution by the third act. It seems like a first act of a series. So it definitely could be three parts.
Yeah, agreed. Hey, either way, however they have to tell the story, just hopefully, it's a good story and wraps up well. But yeah, I'm with you there. I'd like to hear a little bit more about those two. I think that, going into it's got to be hard when you're writing something to get people to connect with characters whenever they don't have names, they're just a number or whatever. Of course, visually we have something to attach them to, but they don't really have names or anything. So, hopefully, that means something or something will change there. Or maybe they have names for one another that will kind of come up or whatever. But I'm with you. I want to hear more about this world. And like I said before, I really want to hear more about this cult. I hope that there's enough time to get into the cult.
You're all about the cult stuff. You love it.
Yeah. Or shit, give us a spinoff book where we just talk about the cult and it doesn't have anything to do with the two kids. I don't know. But
yeah, if they're hopefully this book is pulling people to read it, and hopefully people see the cover and they're like grabbing it off the shelves or seeing it on whatever, just because Jay Baruchel's name's on it. I hope people pull this up.
And a great cover at that. I love the little the little heart thing, whatever you call it.
Gotta love the heart with the blood all around it. It's just one of those things where it's like, I hope this gets picked up so that we can get more. And if there's 3 issues, great. I'll enjoy the 3 issues that I'm reading. But if it gets picked up and we get some like offshoots or some spinoffs or something, then I'll be happy with that as well.
Yep, I'm with you. All in either way. But I guess that kind of brings us to the end of this book. But yeah, a big win for Tear Us Apart. Issue number 1 from me and from Nick. We both love this book and cannot wait for issue number 2. So that about wraps it up, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, I'm not going to go over all the housekeeping on a bonus episode, but make sure you use the hashtag #AllNewAllDifferentNation to be entered in a giveaway to win a copy of Tear Us Apart number 1. And I'm showing the screen because we're going to try to upload the video this time. So, but yeah, you can win a copy of this very book right here. All you have to do is use the hashtag #AllNewAllDifferentNation in a social media post of your choice. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Nick, thank you. And
thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, man.